Hey, this is H1. We're going to be running it back with another episode talking about chess knowledge, chess wisdom, chess understanding again. And today we'll be discussing on how to destroy the Slav defense. I know it's a very solid opening, but there are a few techniques that we can use and a few strategies that we can use to defeat the opponent that is playing the Slav defense. I get it. Let's continue. Let's get through it. All right. All right, so we are going to be the white pieces. Elena against Elizabeth. Let's go. D4, let me not forget my stick. D5, C4, attacking this pawn and initiating the queen's gambit. After C4, we have this move C6 that initiates the Slav defense. Very solid opening. Not a lot of videos talk about this opening, but I enjoy playing it. And I feel like every other player enjoys playing it because nobody really talks about it. Everybody wants to see the Sicilian defense, the French defense, the Caro-Kann, but nobody wants to talk about the Slav defense. So you might have an advantage if you're using it, even though we're going to be talking about in this video how to destroy this type of opening. Now, after this move, knight to F3, knight to F6, knight to C3, very common knight moves. Very common knight moves, and because it's near the center, we're trying to control the center, which is these four squares: E4, E5, D4, D5. These four squares is the most important squares to try to control because whoever controls the center controls the game. E4, E5, D4, D5. All the action revolves around those squares, and players is going to have to consider these captures every single move. And black is already considering, oh, can I capture this pawn for free? Can I do that? It might be interesting if I can capture that pawn for free and do b5 very quickly. But black knows that if they try to capture this pawn on c4, white is going to gain a lot of initiative, especially after moves like e4, e3, bishop attacking the pawn, b5, maybe developing the bishop, doing b3, doing another gambit. Anything goes, especially with the white pieces. So both sides have to be very careful. After knight to c3, a6 initiates the chameleon defense, a chameleon variation in this game. Now, the chameleon variation introduces this move b5. We didn't have this move b5 before because c takes on b5, c takes on b5, knight takes on b5, and black would be just giving away a pawn. But now, since they did this move a6, b5 is reintroduced, so if this move queen b3 happens, b5 can be played, rook a7 can be played if queen b3 happens. That's a whole nother line that we're not even talking about right here, because white actually plays a simple move, c5. c5 is an option, and it keeps the pawn on b7 at bay. Now, black is going to have to, all the time now, protect this pawn on b7, which sometimes they don't want to do, but other times is still a very solid position for the black pieces. Let's see how white dealt with this. After a6, c5, knight b to d7, and then we have this move bishop to f4, developing pieces. We want to do this move e3, and we want this bishop to be outside the pawn structure so that we can clarify, hey, that's a good bishop. That dark square bishop is doing this stuff. We don't want it behind the pawn structure and trapped in with this attack that we're going to be doing on the queen side here. We want it outside the pawn structure. Remember this, all right? When you're developing bishops, outside the pawn structure. If you want to have a bad piece, don't develop the bishop and just do e3. Sometimes that's valuable, but not in a close position like this. The center is going to be close for a while, and it prevents black from ever doing this move e5 very quickly here, because this move e5 is the main move that black wants to do. With this bishop on f4, black thought it was immediately the chance to attack that bishop immediately. Immediately the chance to attack that bishop immediately. That makes no sense, h1. Let's go with it. Knight to h5, sacrificing the knight mobility here because the knight is on the edge of the board, and they're basically saying to us, hey, I think this move is more valuable than this knight actually being near the center, because you're forced to move this bishop somewhere. If you move the bishop to g3, black is going to capture the bishop and argue, hey, I have the two bishop advantage. And we already know the two bishop advantage is better than not having the two bishop advantage. The two bishop advantage gains more space. It's better than any minor piece coordination. When the pawns is off the board, the bishops are hitting each and every diagonal. But the knight struggle to get to the end of the board when the bishops soar to get to the end of the board. Knight to h5, bishop goes back to d2 because we don't want to give them the double bishop advantage. And so after bishop to d2, knight to f6, g3 because they don't want to do no threefold repetition here. That's exactly what black wants to do. Black was offering, if bishop goes back to f4, knight h5, bishop to d2, and threefold repetition happens. Yeah, this is fighting chess. We do not want to go along with their plan, and when we're playing at tournaments, every game that you play, even online, we want to go for the win. Just because our opponent seems like that they're playing perfect moves doesn't mean that we're going to assume that they're the next Bobby Fischer. Everybody's human when they're playing chess. G3, fianchetto and the bishop, G6, and they're like basically copying us because we're the cool person. Bishop to G7, and then eventually we're gonna castle, and yeah, we are in the middle game. In this middle game, what are we doing? What are the plans here? And one thing that we need to think about when we're in the middle game is, what are our pawn breaks? The pawn structure tells what we should be doing in certain positions. Our pawn breaks, our main ones, is e4 and b5. This one looks more desirable because, I mean, it seems like if we did this move e3 anyway, the pawn chain is already looking towards the queen side. So you could argue that white has more space on the queen side, so they should be attacking on the queen side. And then you should be arguing black vice versa. Since they have more space on the king side, they should be attacking on the king side. I mean, their pawn structure is already looking towards the king side. Moves like rook e8, e5 is going to be coming very soon, or just moving this knight and doing e5. Either way, they're going to be pushing on the king side. You're going to see this in this game. When you do a move like c5, you have to worry about that stuff. And if we don't do anything in this match and just let our opponent attack us, then we're the dumb ones. We don't sit back and allow our opponent to attack us at any moment of chess. We either stop it or we let them do it because we have another massive attack that they need to stop, all right? That's how chess works. Initiative works. Whoever has more time in the position, they usually win the game. Now, queen c2, you're gonna see in this game, queen c2, knight e8, not the best move, but it's doable. Rook a to d1, and then what do we got here? Knight to c7, rerouting that knight because before you open up things, you actually want the pieces that really good squares, and that knight being on e8 is blocking our rook from maybe going to the e8 square. Maybe we need to develop this bishop before we do a move like e5. I don't know, maybe we need to do e5 and then knight to e6. These coordinations of moves that these tougher players think about is very good to think about. It's a good thing. Coordination of pieces matters in chess. Activity matters. It's one of the key things that I talk about, especially in my evaluation video. One of the 6 pillars that I talk about that you need to confront in the game of chess. Who has more space, who has more center control, who has more activity, better king safety, more material, and then, did I say center control? Yeah, I said center control, and who has a better pawn structure in chess. Knight c7, bishop goes back to f4, and you know, they're playing the game. Knight to e6, attacking the bishop. Are we giving up the bishop? No, we are not. The bishop goes back to c1, and then we have this move f5, where, I mean, our opponent is attacking. We're the white pieces. We have a little bit of an edge still. That's what the engine says. But our opponent is attacking with this move f5. They want to go f4 maybe. You don't know. You don't know yet. This knight looks a little bit awkward on the e6 square, but we still have to figure out our own plan. And that's why if our opponent is on the rush attacking on the king side, we need to be on a rush to either stopping their attack or having our own attack on the queen side. That's why we have this move b4 next. b4, getting ready to attack them on the queen side. And we have a battle. We have a battle. And randomly, the computer gave this a brilliant move, but hey, this is good. This is going to be a decisive game no matter how you look at this. After this move b4, knight to f6, queen to b3 to make this move more powerful because we want to do a4, b5, knight e4, knight to a4, putting this knight on the good square, b6, and yeah, we're getting the ball rolling. Both sides are actually. No side have did a mistake, even though the engine favors the white side just a little bit. But even in the King's Indian defense, the computer always favors the white side for some reason. Even though psychologically speaking, not everybody's going to do the best moves if our king starts being attacked. Now, they got a lot of pieces to go through if they want to start attacking our king. Let's see what they do here. After knight to a4, rook to b8, just getting out of the way of knight to b6, attacking the rook on a8. And then we have this next move, knight to b6, queen e8, bishop to b2, developing that bishop, protecting that pawn because that knight was attacking that pawn and we want that rook to be doing something else. They put the knight to c7 to potentially put the knight to b5 here and attack the pawn, and maybe that's going to be a future hold for their knight. I don't know. Do we shut that down? No, we do not. We do this move, knight to e5, bishop takes on e5, a mistake missed, but if I went over all the little mistakes in this position, then you wouldn't get the main idea of what I'm trying to show you here. D takes on e5, pushing through, and then we have this move, a bishop to e6, stopping this pawn from going forward and allowing this bishop to be an active member in this game. Because for right now, this bishop isn't doing anything. This bishop is doing nothing at all. But with this bishop on e6, but if this pawn was gone here, then this bishop would be doing fantastic, and maybe we can have a battery with the bishop and queen combo along this diagonal, threatening all types of checkmates. What do we do now? Reroute the queen, queen to e3. Where's that queen going? We're gonna find out. g5, f3, kicking that knight out, seeing where that knight is going here. Our opponent decides to attack us. f4, queen moves. After f4, sacrifice the knight. F takes on g3. F takes on e4, and yeah. This is the wrongest move, but we should not be scared of our opponent's threats, especially if we're analyzing this. That's why they immediately taken this knight. There's no extra threats here. I mean, if the queen could come over, if the queen was on h5 still, like f takes on g3 would have been way more powerful than it was. But even if you, like, look at this last position right here. Let me put the knight back right here. I never do this, but let me put the knight back right here. Where was the knight even going in this position? Where was the knight even going? The knight was trapped in the center. The knight was hopeless in this position. Once they did g5 and we did f3, it was already over. And actually, oh crap, it was over long before that because that knight was trapped. They should have got that knight out of there a long time ago. But now they're forced to this like hyper aggressive position that the position didn't even call for and that Black's pieces isn't ready for. Like this knight on c7, it shouldn't even really be there. It should not be there at all. It should be somewhere on the king side attacking. And so after f takes on e4, g takes on h2, king h1, and we got to talk about king safety, especially after this move, queen h5. Whose king do you think is more safe right now at this position? And in my future videos, I'm going to be asking a lot more questions like that just to get your brain rolling, just to get your brain thinking. Whose king is more safe? What do y'all think? Whose king is more safe? What if I argued that actually Black's king is not safe at all? What if I argued that? in that white king is more safe. You might be thinking, okay, well, h1, this pawn on h2 is blocking this square on g1. And this queen is over here on h5. It could be threatening something. But look what happened here. Since this pawn is on h2, and yes, you are right, we don't have any pawns guarding our king. Now we use this simple technique. We use this simple technique of using our opponent's pawn to shield our king. And even if they push this g pawn down, they're gonna have to get through somewhere on the f file or along this diagonal here, or maybe get the queen to g1 or something to break this formation. Or get this bishop traded, maybe bishop to h3 to get some squares in. But for right now, since this pawn is on h2, it's guarding our king on h1. And that's why we have to immediately attack. We cannot be passive in this game at all. And if we're thinking about an immediate move, how we can take advantage of this position, we would see this move, e takes on d5. E takes on d5, attacking the bishop, attacking this pawn at the same time. And yeah, after this move, e takes on d5, c takes on d5, get the queen activated with queen to e3, not allowing this move bishop to h3 to ever happen because our queen is covering this third rank here. When we're thinking about chess, when we're in a winning position, we have to figure out all of our opponent counterplays. And our opponent is going to be figuring out every single one of their plays. They're like a wounded animal, okay? They're like a wounded animal that's very hyper focused on, oh, I don't want you hurting me since I'm already hurt. Like, have you ever tried to touch a wounded animal before? Aren't they like more alert than usual? Yeah, they are. And just like a chess player that has less in material because they're hurt, we have to be hyper focused too at this moment to get that win. After queen to e3, queen to g6, queen to d4, which is threatening what? What is this move threatening? Knight is threatening the pawn on d5. Bishop is threatening the pawn on d5. Queen, rook battery on d5. What is going to happen to that pawn on d5? Rook b to d8, always having them to focus on the threat. We want to keep the initiative going so they have no time to figure out exactly what they're doing here. a4, which is a very simple plan. You're basically threatening, okay, I'm going to just do a4. Now the knight can go to b5 and attack my queen on d4. Bishop goes to f5. Weird move because of e6. After e6, this game is basically over. What do I mean by that? What am I trying to say here? e6 is sacrificing the pawn, in which maybe black can get away with knight takes on e6, but it's just a little bit ugly after bishop takes on d5. Just a little bit. And this threat of queen h8 is not the best threat for the black pieces here. And that's why I said before that black's king is actually not safer than the white king, because their own pawn is still guarding us. What if king takes on h2? What if that move would have happened here? They would have had this check, queen to h5, and we wouldn't have known where that check would have led to. But why even give our opponent the option? Just taking material willy-nilly is not the right way to go. So after this move e6, rook to f6, they're trying to guard this square, queen to h8, because queen to h8 is checkmate. And we got this fascinating move, knight to d7. Just ugly. Just nasty. Rook to f6. Why? Why even keep on playing? But they kept on playing because they're trying to make sure that the opponent actually knows how to finish this game.
Are you sure about that?
But they're gonna find out what it's like to face a tougher opponent, especially seeing this move knight to d7 on the board. After here, knight to e8. And if knight would have taken on e6, then knight takes on f6. That's basically a check. We're already up a piece, and just them being down more pieces is not going to cut it. even after this move, knight to e8, they're still going to be down more pieces. Knight takes on f6, check. Knight takes on f6, check. And we have all the pressure in the world in this position. We have all the pressure in the world. And we're going to keep on easing into the position. Nothing too extreme, nothing too fancy. I already know. Like queen a5, y'all want to see checkmate on the board. I get it. But we're already up in pieces. We got to let our opponent prove something. This queen is attacking this bishop. What is this bishop doing? And we don't want to allow anything like knight to g4 to ever happen here. After queen e5, bishop c2, attacking the rook. Rook takes on d5, sacrificing a whole rook. Because if knight takes on e5, queen h8 is checkmate on the board. Queen h8 would be checkmate on the board if knight takes. And that's why rook went to f8. Rook went to f8. And we could just keep on going into their position with rook to d7, attacking this pawn on e7, because if knight takes on d7, queen h8 is checkmate still because of this battery along this diagonal. After rook d7, queen g7, just force the situation. Rook takes on e7, sacrificing the rook again because it's going to be less defenders on this knight on f6. Remember, we have more pieces than our opponent. We got the bishop queen active diagonal here, and our rook on f1 finally poked his head. I was like, hey, I'm back here. What are you doing? Like, dude, I've been here. I've been doing my thing. He leveled up in the position, pretty much. He leveled up. And so after rook takes, queen takes, rook takes, not queen takes. And then we have this next move, rook takes, and then finally queen takes. This is the position. Why did I mess up there? This is the position black decided to resign here, because if queen takes on f6, bishop takes on f6, and they're just up a bishop and a few pawns that's going to queen very quickly here. And yeah, usually this is the time to resign, especially in the game like this. Now, the simple idea was just pushing the queenside pawns, but they kind of over pushed here on the king side. If you looked at this position, wait a minute, which position? This position right here, you can kind of see the bar going up a little bit more, and then you see like the weird postures of their pieces at this specific moment, especially with the queen going to e8 here. But then knight c7, knight e5, which is really good. Them sacrificing their fianchetto bishop, which you never do unless you get a tactic off. Them sacrificing that fianchetto bishop for that knight on e5 is just not a good strategical move. You usually don't want to sacrifice that bishop because that bishop is a good defender, especially if you're having the fianchetto set up for the black pieces. And so after that, it was wraps. It was game over. Just hurdling along your pieces, making sure you do this move queen to e3. The knight can't go to g5. There's no safe squares, and then we can just do f3, pick that knight up, and we can pick that knight up, not even care about our king, because our king is safe behind their pawn, which is awesome. And we broke through in the position. Now, I know not all the time your opponent isn't going to give you like an awesome position like this, and they're not going to over push in this game, but this is just a good example of how your games could go. I mean, knight on b6 was a good piece. Bishop, the bishop was harassed, but it decided to be a good piece at the end of the game. Definitely at this moment, this bishop was the shining armor of this game. It was the celebrity of the game. It was the main character. It was Deku, Naruto. Like that was that bishop. And so I'm glad that I was able to share that with y'all. All right, thank you for listening. I appreciate every single one of you, and that was a really good win for the white pieces. Hey, make sure that you like and subscribe. Hey, that was a good win, especially when we seen this like sacrifice happen and stuff like that. Queen takes on f6, and that was amazing. Anyway, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Keep on fighting till the end, staying focused in chess and in real life too. I will see you next time.